Hello again. It's Jim Clune again in his never-ending quest to bore the internet. Okay, so here's what I want to bore the internet with now. I left off in the last talk about organizational security in relation to botnets, saying that I would talk a little bit about how corporate laptops get botted, how that happens if they wind up on a botnet. And it doesn't have to be a corporate laptop, it can be any computer inside a corporation. The mechanism is basically the same as it is for home computers. It's users clicking on things. It's, the end user, the person behind the keyboard, me, you, being fooled into doing something that draws down malicious software that gets installed on the computer, again because it can't possibly be at the most current edge of maintenance for Internet Explorer or Windows 7 or Windows XP or Windows 98, the stuff that's really out there. And as a result it gets hacked. Again, what's being attacked is not the computer, it's you, the internal user of a computer who's being seduced into doing something they shouldn't. There are ways to prevent that from happening as readily as it could happen, particularly in a corporate environment, in an organizational environment, and probably the most significant way you can slow minimize the opportunity for this to happen is by not allowing your normal desktop users and laptop users to have full administrative access over their computers. This is a natural condition in the Unix and Linux environment, and increasingly it's the way things can be in the Windows environment, and it's the way they should be. The opportunity for a blunder to turn into a full compromise of the system is dramatically reduced if a user does not run as the full-blown administrator of the system. A normal user will have restricted ability to install software or make changes to the system, the kinds of changes that malicious software wants to make. Having said that, the practice of this is surprisingly small in the real world, and because it's inconvenient. People want to have immediate control over their computer and make it do whatever they want it to do immediately. They want to install software, they want to make changes. In the United States, it seems very similar to me to the way people feel about their guns and their cars. They're personal expressions of identity, and you can't get between the person and the object without making the person feel reduced. You can give a computer to an employee and say, this is company property. It doesn't work that well in most companies from what I can see. People feel a need to control the computer completely as an expression of their identity, and they will always find ways to make it absolutely imperative that they have full administrative control. Executive secretaries are very good at this and will always get what they want in this regard because they'll always have a plausible argument about what needs to be. Developers are the same way. If they're allowed to develop on the laptops or the computers that they directly control, a very bad practice, but one that's common. And so, although you can restrict users' administrative rights to the laptops and desktops that you give them in the corporation, in practice it doesn't last very long and it doesn't stick. But it is a great idea, and if you can do it, do it. You'll be very far on your way to keeping people from introducing malicious software and botnet activity into your network. Of course, your administrators can still do it, the people who have full control, and they, of course, will never believe that they can blunder, and they do. So if you do go that route, make sure it's uniformly established across the board, and the only time a computer has got somebody at the other end of the keyboard with full administrative rights is under very careful and controlled conditions. Good luck with that. It's not the common practice. Okay, so you're in the real world. What happens? A person's got a laptop, a desktop, they got full control over it. They're goofing off most of the day, right, with Facebook and YouTube and all the rest. And they see things, they click on things, and eventually the computer gets hacked. There are ways, which I'll get into in a later lecture, inside a company to reduce the effectiveness of a botted computer that's been hacked this way and now has malware on it from being able to reach out to the internet to talk to the bot herder. There are ways, not commonly practiced, but we'll talk about them in a later lecture. Even if you practice them, what's going to happen is that computer at the end of the day is going to go home if it's a laptop. It's going to get thrown in the trunk of the car if you're lucky and not in the back seat. Because normally what will happen, it'll go on the back seat in an unlocked car outside a bar for 5 hours after work. Goodbye. But if you're lucky and the computer makes it home, then it's going to be used by the entire family, almost certainly, to do with whatever they want. This is what I see all the time. It varies from culture to culture, and there are significant cultural differences around the world in how laptop computers that belong to a company are used. But in general, you can be assured that it won't just be used by the employee. And the minute their kids get their hands on it, all bets are off. What will happen then at home while the computer is being used, it'll be used in a much less secure, typically home environment, in which many of the controls that might exist in a corporate environment are gone. So if it didn't get hacked at work, it will get hacked at home. Then, just like a Trojan horse, right? Dun da da dun, looks like a nice healthy corporate laptop comes in under the arm of the smiling person, past the guard, up the elevator, to the docking station, click, bing, power. Instantly, a computer that is under the control of somebody else, because it got botted last night while your kids were playing with it, is now reaching out through your corporate firewall to, oh, I don't know, maybe the Ukraine, and getting additional instructions about what to do next, which will include scanning the corporate network, looking for other vulnerable computers, and siphoning off any interesting information that might be on the machine and on those other computers. That's what happens. The laptops and really all the portable devices that we've given our employees in our organizations to move back and forth with, they're essentially Trojan horses that will eventually become under the control of someone who doesn't like your organization and wants to steal from it, and will move back and forth in and out of your organization, collecting information and, as they say, exfiltrating, the opposite of infiltrating, exfiltrating it out to the attacker. This is really happening, and again, it's behind the scenes, it's not destructive in any obvious way, the data loss is occurring, and corporate America isn't reacting to it in any public way. That's it. That's how your corporate computer is getting hacked. It's getting hacked because it's being used like a personal computer. It's getting hacked by those kids at home. It's getting hacked in that wireless cafe, and then it's coming back into work. Even if it's a desktop, if they're using it casually and they have administrative control, even if it doesn't go home, it's getting hacked and eventually winds up on a botnet. All right, given that this is true, what do you do? That's what I'll talk about in the next lecture. I think it's a given that you have to accept this, accept the fact that this kind of activity is occurring. In the next talk, I want to address some of the things you can do to mitigate the effect and to minimize the bleeding that's occurring. That's it. I'll talk to you in a bit.